Taking a Walk. I'm Buzz Knight, and this is the Taking a Walk podcast. Now, what if the price of your dream life was walking away from one of the most powerful jobs in Hollywood? Steve Bardwil spent years as chief counsel for Walt Disney Studios, navigating billion-dollar deals, high-stakes negotiations, and the relentless pressure of the entertainment industry's legal machine. But behind closed doors, he was writing songs, leading a band, and wrestling with a question that haunted him. What if there's more? In 2024, Steve made a decision that seemed crazy to everyone around him. He left Disney to pursue music full-time. 1 year later, he got a critically acclaimed album produced by 11-time Grammy winner Joe Ciccarelli, rave reviews from so many folks, and he's heading back into the studio. This is the story of how he did it, why he did it, and what it cost him. Welcome to Taking a Walk. Steve Bardwil is next. Steve Bardwil, welcome to the Taking a Walk podcast.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
So since we call this show Taking a Walk, we like to ask this question. It's fascinating. We get all different sorts of answers from everybody, all walks of life. If you could take a walk with someone, Steve, living or dead, who would you take a walk with? And maybe tell us where you might take that walk with them.
Oh, that's kind of a interesting and tough question at the same. If I could take a walk with anyone, living or not living?
Correct. Prefer living, just so you can, your imagination. Well, maybe not. I don't know. No criteria to it. You tell me.
Could I pick one living and one not living?
Absolutely.
The not living person I'd like to take a walk with is Mark Twain, I think. Just think he's an interesting guy who I'd love to chat with. And living, maybe Paul McCartney.
Okay. There's been, I don't know if there was a Mark Twain answer ever, but there's been a number of Paul McCartney answers for sure, as you could well imagine. So
Yeah.
it would be quite a walk. I'd love to be on a fly on the wall for
I've met him a couple times, but I've, at a restaurant, but never really talked to him.
So you have an amazing story. Before we get into the story, I wanted to hear first about your earliest music influences that you can recall.
Well, it would have to be the Beatles. Seeing them on, I saw him on Ed Sullivan when I was really young, and I really didn't understand what it was, but I saw these girls screaming and the crowd going crazy, and I had some older friends that were really into the Beatles, and I would say that was my first thing that influenced me or made me think about music being, cool.
And everything changed for anybody who saw that, right? That their life probably changed, whether they went into music or whether they became chief counsel for Walt Disney. Their life changed when they saw this, amazing moment in time, right?
Yeah. Well, and then when I was like, I don't know, 12 or whatever, is when I started thinking I would want to, this was many years after seeing them on TV, but I wanted a guitar, and my parents got me a St. George electric guitar from Sears, which I wish I still had.
Oh, I was keeping my fingers crossed. I was like, do you have it somewhere? Is it not in the basement among cobwebs? Is it in a
I
safe
didn't even know
place?
what happened to it. I wish I could say I sold it at a pawn shop and got some money. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know where it went.
So where did you grow up, Steve?
I grew up in the Valley, in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, outside, part of Los Angeles proper, in Encino.
And do you remember the first concert? I'm sure you do.
I do. When I was little, I was like 10, And my cousin, she was like 16, drove me and a friend of mine and a couple other cousins in a station wagon to Dodger Stadium to see the Beatles.
Oh, okay. We come full circle even more. And that was the 28-minute or 29
Yeah,
minute show, right?
it was at Dodger Stadium, and Bobby Hebb, I think, opened for them. Uh, there was a tent set up, a green and white tent set up in center field that had a sign on it that said dressing room. And that's where Bobby Hebb came out, and then he went back in, and then the Beatles came out. And they did play for about 20, like you said, 20 minutes, half hour. And the sound system was, those cone speakers that they had at the stadium. They didn't have like the kind of sound systems they do now. Couldn't really hear them because everyone was screaming so much. And then they went in the dressing room at the end, and then a car flew out the back end of the dressing room, and they opened the gates, and they were out of the stadium before uh, anyone had a chance to even think that it was over.
And how many times did Bobby Hebb do Sunny?
He did it once. That was his big hit.
Yeah, because if there really wasn't a big arsenal of songs,
No,
that
I
was
couldn't
not
tell you anything else.
unusual.
He played longer than the Beatles, I think, and I can't tell you no one was paying attention to him except Sonny. He did do.
Yeah, great song, by the way.
Was a great song.
Yeah,
Is a great song. Still is
yeah,
a great song.
yep. So, okay, let's get to the meat of it here, sir. You were chief counsel at Walt Disney Studios, one of the most prestigious legal positions in Hollywood, no less anywhere. Can you take us back to that moment where you decided to walk away? What was that conversation like with yourself? I'm sure it had been going on.
It had been going on. I hadn't played guitar since in college, and about I don't know, 15 years ago, I bought a Martin acoustic guitar and started playing and writing some songs. And my friend who I went to the Beatles concert with, that I grew up with, plays bass. So I told him I wanted to form a band. I told him and some other musicians that I heard playing live, and I approached them and said, I'm thinking of starting a band. Would you be interested? And we played, and we actually had some pretty swell gigs. We opened for Donovan Frankenreiter, Pablo Cruz, Eddie Money, Jim Messina, Robbie Krieger, Dickie Betts, and most recently, before I left, I was still at Disney. We did a show opening for Lyle Lovett and his big band at the Saban Theater in Beverly Hills. So, but I could never really promote it or spend full time because I had no music cred because I was chief counsel of the Walt Disney Company. And it's a pretty much of a full time job, as you can imagine, because I oversaw the legal affairs of, Marvel, Pixar, Lucasfilm, Walt Disney Animation, Walt Disney Studios, Fox Searchlight, Fox Pictures, the distribution arm, the Disney Music Group. So, and there were some other responsibilities as well. I had hundreds of people on my team, and it was an amazing job. I worked with some of the people at Disney were extremely creative and smart. I worked with the chairman of the studio, Alan Bergman, who I'm still very good friends with. We have dinner, about once a month or so. I worked with Steve Jobs a lot. Got to know him really well. Kathy Kennedy at Lucasfilm, Kevin Feige at Marvel, and John Lasseter and Ed Catmull were at Pixar, and then Jim Morris and Pete Docter were there when I left, and I had decided that I'd been there and done a lot of that, and COVID hit, and we were all working from home doing Zoom meetings, and I just thought it was if I'm going to do the music thing, I got to do it. Um, And so I told Alan Bergman that I wanted to, to leave. And he said, "Oh, can't you just stay, one more year?" And then I did that. And then he said, and then the year was coming. He goes, "Well, can you just stay 6 more months?" And I go, "Okay, but that's it. I'm out of here." And and I left. I know you asked like what was my thought process. It was kind of bittersweet because and wasn't the easiest decision to make, because when you're working a job like that, my identity was kind of wrapped up in being chief counsel of the Walt Disney Studio. My business card, had Mickey Mouse on it and said, chief counsel, Walt Disney Studios. When I would go to meetings or people, restaurants knew me as that. You check into a hotel and you give them the card. That's who you are. Um, and so you're kind of wondering, well, who am I going to be? What am I going to, what if the music thing doesn't work out? Um, but you never know how long we have on. Rob Reiner was murdered last night, and you just never know when your time's up. And I just figured I know what life at Disney's like really well, but I don't know what life outside of Disney is like. And maybe I'll be bored. Hopefully, I can do the music thing, but at least I want to just see what else life has to offer besides Disney. And the only way to do that is to leave. And so that's kind of where I landed.
And besides Alan, did anyone in your family try to talk you out of it? Was there anybody that said, Steve?
No,
No.
because they knew everyone, everyone in my family, my kids and my wife knew that I wanted to do the music thing. When I left, I didn't have songs that I knew I wanted to record. I wrote some songs, new songs after I quit. Wanted to find a producer. I was starting when I left with nothing music wise that would lead me to believe that I definitely had a music place to go. It was a hope.
As you had described, years back, getting into music and working with your friends and playing in a band, did you sort of feel the momentum of that sort of picking up in terms of your passionate love for it as you were first
Yeah,
beginning it then?
yeah. And when we were beginning it, everyone in the band, and by the way, everyone that was in the original band is still in the band except for our bass player who left, the George, the one who I've been friends with growing up. I think as we got more serious with the music, he was not as dedicated, or not into the commitment that the rest of us knew that we needed to make to this, to go to this next level. But everyone else has been in the band, and I wasn't the only one that had a full-time job. Everyone else in the band had other jobs too, but gradually the other guys left their jobs and went into started doing music full time. I was the last one out of a full time job. Our guitar player Johnny Statula, when we opened for Dickie Betts, and Johnny I think had met Dwayne Betts, Dickie's son, once or twice, and they were playing together, so they started talking, and they saw Johnny playing in our band. And next thing they were forming the Allman Betts band. This was like 10 years ago, and they asked Johnny to join the Allman Betts band. So he's been touring and recording with them. And he's also been playing out with Dwayne Betts. Johnny brought our drummer Vince and our keyboard player Max out with them, and they're touring with Dwayne Betts as well. And Vince has also toured with an electronic music artist named Zoo, ZHU, and Aaron, the saxophone player, was touring with Zoo, and he brought Vince into that situation. So everyone started getting more serious about the music. And like I said, I was the last one out of a job and into the music.
What were their jobs? Just a variety of different types of jobs that they
Yeah,
had?
yeah. I think Johnny worked for a beverage company as a manager of some sort. Aaron he was a computer data analyst, I think. He worked for a short time for P. Diddy. Um, and Max worked, Max actually won an Emmy because Max is like a tech geek. He plays B3 organ, every kind of keyboard you can imagine. We just finished a recording session. I think he had 9 different, a Wurlitzer, a Prophet synth, a Nord, a B3 organ. He has his own B3 organ. He repairs and fixes them. He had whatever keyboard that Stevie Wonder used on, a long time ago, and he had the same one that the Doors used. So I mean, and he worked for the company that films sports events from planes and blimps and helicopters, and he like hooks up and creates the camera rigs and all that stuff, and he won an Emmy for that.
So they
And
come from all different walks of life,
yeah,
basically, and all roads intersected back
and
to.
we've all become great friends. It's like a family. We've had this, Max is the newest member of the band, and he's been with us over 10 years.
So walk me through the decision to work with Joe Ciccarelli. You're a new artist. You're starting from scratch, kind of. How did you get an 11-time Grammy winner to take your call?
Well, that's funny. I knew I wanted to get a good producer, and I was originally thinking, and I called a friend of mine who's in the business, and I said, "Hey, and I had by this time I had written the songs, and I had actually booked some time at East West Studios, like 3 or 4 months in advance, figuring, okay, now I just got to find a producer." And I asked my friend, I go, "I want to get a good producer. Can you know, who can I call?" I was thinking, like, "Do you know Rick Rubin?" He goes, "That's not really my thing. Let me ask around. I know some people, some people."
I know a guy, yeah,
So
or a
they
gal.
they send me 3 names and 3 phone numbers, and I Googled them. I didn't know who Joe Ciccarelli was. I Googled him, and it said he won 11 Grammys, and I saw the artists that he worked with: Elton John and U2 and Beck and the Counting Crows and Jason Mraz and you know uh, just Alanis Morissette and Frank Zappa and Morrissey and My Morning Jacket and the Killers and the White Stripes. I mean, it's just on and on. And so, I always believe that if you don't ask, it's the same as if they said no. So what's the downside? So I called him and got his voice message. And so I said Steve Bardwil and gave him my phone number. And then I didn't hear. A few days later, I get a text from him saying, "Joe Ciccarelli here. What do you want?" I said, "Well," I said, I texted him back and said, "I'm a singer songwriter and I'm making an album at East West, and I was looking for someone. I was hoping to work with you as a producer." And he texted me back and said, "Do you have any demos?" And so I did have some, songs that I had recorded on my iPhone. They weren't professionally done demos at all. And I sent them to him, and he texted back and said, "Cool songs. We should talk." So I figured, whoa, maybe, I'll take that. So we talked on the phone, and he was at the time he was in France at a recording studio doing an album with Morrissey, and he said, "Let's have breakfast when I get back." I said, "Oh, that'd be great." I met him for breakfast, and we started talking. You know, he said, "So what are you looking to do? What are you looking for with this album?" I go, "I want you to win another Grammy." He just laughed. He goes, "Yeah, okay. What do you know?" Um, and I asked, what do you see in what kind of record do you see?" And we just started talking, and I told him about the band, and the times that I'd booked in the studio, coincidentally, he was free to do the tracking, but he had another project that he was working on. So we did the tracking with the band in the studio, and with guide. I just did guide vocals at that time, and he said, I got to jump into something else for a few months. So he goes, "You're not? Are you?" He's the one when we first started talking. He said, "Are you in a hurry? Is there a deadline?" I go, "No. Whenever I'll work around you." And so a few months later, went back and did some guitar and keyboard overdubs and did the vocals and then the background vocals. And my wife, Catherine, is a singer, and so when it came time to do background vocals, I said, Joe said, "So who does your backup vocals?" And I said, "Well, it's my wife, Catherine, and Max." I go, "But if you want to bring somebody else in, that's fine with me. I just want to make the best record possible." He goes, "Well, let's, it's better if it's your guys. If it works out, let's try them. And if it doesn't work out, we'll bring somebody in." So they had to go in and, sing for him. And he liked what they had to bring to the table. And so it worked out.
Did he at all challenge your vision for the record, at least in those early conversations, or did he just sort of let you kind of create?
No, I told him, the reason I'm coming to you is you go, I've never done this before. I don't know anything about the recording process really. I go, I want you to make the best record you can make with us. And he was amazing. He said he wanted to come to our rehearsal. To our rehearsals before we go into the studio. And so I had booked the rehearsals for a week with the band. So as soon as Joe said he wanted to come to the rehearsals, I called the band and go, "Joe wants to come to the rehearsals for a week. We have to rehearse a week before Joe." So the rehearsals ended up being 2 weeks. 1 week without, just us trying to get our act together. And so Joe doesn't walk in and goes, "What did I get myself into?" and a week with Joe, and he's amazing. We become good friends. I really love the guy, and he's just amazingly talented.
So he is known for being really hands-on,
And he is.
yeah, changing tempos and switching keys and reworking. Is there a specific example that you can give of a song where his input completely changed what you thought it was originally going to be?
Yeah. We had this recent on this last album. We had a song called "Good Things," and we worked it up, playing it a certain way, and he came in and he knows he'll tell Vince, the drummer, "Don't play eighth notes, play sixteenths," and you guys drive it, you got to drive the energy before the chorus starts. Or he'll tell the bass player, I think those guys are playing majors, you're playing a minor here. I don't think that it's not syncing right. And the song that we were playing, I would say, had more of a Traveling Wilburys or Petty kind of vibe. That's the closest thing I can think of. But when he got done with this, it's like a Stevie Wonder Motown song or something. It's just like, I didn't even know we had it in us. Yeah, like he brings out the best in all of our, all the music and musicians that there is. And when you say he's hands-on, we're playing a song and we got we do a take of the song and he goes, "I'm going to come out, Vince. I think I want to change that snare drum." And and he comes out and he's on his hands and knees. He ordered when we had breakfast, he said, "I think for this album, what I'm hearing is I think you need a vintage Ludwig or Gretsch drum kit. Have your drummer call John at Angel City Drum Works." So we had this drum kit, and Joe ordered a bunch of snare drums or something. I don't know the difference between a snare. A snare drum is a snare drum in my book, but he would try out two or three snare drums and go back in and nah, and he'd come out and put tape on the, and he doesn't tell there's two assistants, he doesn't tell them to come out and do. He actually does it himself. He's on his hands and knees, you know. He's like hands on.
That's
He
incredible.
the guy
Wow.
has the best ears in the business.
That is so wonderful just hearing that inside story there on how he just knows what he wants and gets real specific.
The specificity is unreal.
It's
He'll
awesome.
come in and I'm playing. I have. He told me to. I had a Taylor guitar. I have a Taylor guitar, a Martin guitar, and a Gibson. And, we'd start. He'd say, "Try the Gibson," and I'm playing that. He goes, "Eh," and then he'd try the Martin, eh, and then try the Taylor. He goes, "Hold on," and he goes upstairs. He has his own studio at East West Studios now, his own production studio, and he has some guitars up there. He brings down an old Epiphone acoustic guitar that it's like the John Lennon model. It wasn't John Lennon's signature, but it said, it had when Epiphone made this, they put John Lennon's signature in the guitar. I'm playing that, and he goes, "Yeah, that'll work." So on whatever, this was a particular song. I don't even remember what song it was, but he has something. He has a sound in mind that he's looking for. He knows how to get it.
That's incredible. Nothing but time has been called timeless and contemporary. When you were making it, did you have a particular sonic target in mind that you were looking for, that you were chasing, or did it just turn out, we wanted to just feel just right?
I wrote all the songs, and when I write them, I'm just playing them on my acoustic guitar. So it's me and the song really. And I never envisioned or had an idea of what it would sound like with the band at the time I wrote them. When the process that, when we work up a song, I take that song to the band and I play it for them. And I might say, oh, I'm looking, say there's a song Magic Night in Paris on the album that's kind of about an experience I had at a jazz club in Paris. And it was, a swing dance kind of jazz club. And I saw these people fall what I thought fall in love. An older guy and a younger woman started dancing. And as the evening wore on, they were more than dancing. Uh, and I wrote a song about it. So I said, I want to get like a vibe of a dance club in Paris in the 40s or something. And it was different sound than the other songs that we were doing. And so we kind of were just worked it up, and Aaron plays sax and flute. And so with the piano and the saxophone, we were able to get kind of a jazz vibe thing going on the song. And then we just started playing them for Joe, and Joe would just add things and do things that we never even thought of. We think, oh, we got this. This is a cool song. We got it nailed. It still has the same vibe and bones, that we originally had, but Joe takes it to a different level. He'll tell Johnny can play something, and he'll like mouth a riff, a guitar riff, and say, "Johnny, look." And Johnny will try something. He goes, no, try something else. Yeah, that'll you double it, do it. The tempo, double the tempo. Just do footballs there. Don't play this. And he just creates this sound that's, you hear it on the record, and it's just like, wow, that's us.
I love "Send Them Love," and
Oh, thank you.
why do you think that song has resonated to such a great degree?
I wrote that song because this girl came to me that was really bummed out because people have been saying some really negative things about her online. And I think I just started thinking, and I kept hearing more and more about bullying online, and I think social media has really messed up a lot of things. I almost don't want to get started on that, but I told her, I go, look at, you can't really don't pay attention to what other people say about you, because what they say says more about them than it does about you. Somebody saying something about you doesn't make what they say. That's not who you are. You know who you are. And you just got to take the high road, send them love. And then after I did that, I go, oh, that could be a song. And so I just kind of wrote down what I told her and put it to music. And I think it's resonated with people because I don't think there's anybody that hasn't felt somebody, saying something about them. I don't know, when somebody says something negative about you, listen to it and absorb it or pay attention to it, give it power. It can affect you and in a negative way and discourage you and make you feel less. And I just think it's important that I always, my thing is I don't take criticism from anybody that I wouldn't want advice from. And so, people can say whatever they want, and you just gotta, take the high road and not push back. Don't go tit for tat with somebody. Just okay, they said it. I'm sending them love. I feel sorry for them that's what they want to spend their time doing.
Well, you've said reading reviews feels like reading about somebody else. So you've kind of illustrated in your own way about your work too.
Yeah, sometimes it's weird. I listen to my songs and sometimes they help me. Like if I'm thinking something and I'll listen to a song and I'll, yeah, wow, I should take that advice. I should take my own advice. It's kind of interesting that way.
So you're heading back into East West Studios. You must be so excited to record a new album.
Yeah.
And with Joe.
Yep.
I mean, boy, I'm excited for you. What's
Thank you.
different though about you as an artist, obviously now compared to when you walked in there the first time?
Well, I didn't know anything when I walked in the first time. Having been through a recording session, I've learned the jargon. I can speak the language at least now. I don't ask as many questions like, what does this mean? What are you talking about? And there's a comfort that not only I have with the process, but I think everybody in the band has, because we've all worked with Joe before, and Joe knows us, we know Joe, and it's less stressful and less pressure. And I feel like I'm more relaxed and the band's more relaxed, and maybe Joe, he's pretty, he doesn't beat around the bush. He tells you, like if something's not working or try this, do that. But I just think there's a mutual familiarity and camaraderie that, and because we bonded. I mean, recording an album when you're working together for, an extensive period of time and you're eating, lunch and dinner with everybody for a number of days, and you just get to be, familiar and friends. And Joe and I have become friends. We've gone out to dinner, and I just talked to him this morning. It's just different, and the songs are different this time.
Evolution.
Yeah.
Right? Evolution. Mm-hmm. What traits from your past life do you think have served you well in your new life?
Working with creative people, I always realize that the artist is very precious about what they create because they're invested in it. It's hard for them to listen to other people because, at the studio, we would see dailies every day, and the studio is in the business of making money. And, if a movie's 3 hours long or whatever, and it needs to be, that's not as many people are going to see that movie if it's 3 hours long than if it's 2 hours long. And even 2 hours long is plenty long for, a movie. The worst thing you want to do is have somebody come out and say, yeah, it's a good movie, but wow, it's too long. But I just use that as an example because I think as an artist, I can get kind of precious about the songs that I write. But when other professionals that I'm working with tell me their opinions, I welcome those. I don't want to be so precious about them that I'm not willing to make changes based on their suggestion. And I just believe that the more creative input that there is to a project, for songwriting in particular, and for movie making too, sometimes, the reason you have a team is a team sport, I'd say. Not It's not so much an individual sport. Yeah, look at I think the Beatles, when the four of them were together, what they created was magical. I mean, they're all great artists individually, but I don't think them alone was as much magic as the four of them together were.
And yet those entities like that, just like organizations and teams, can be very fragile.
That's true.
Especially as a long time has been spent together,
Yeah.
touring and studio
Yep.
time,
Yep.
And eventually those things, well, sometimes wear thin, right?
Yeah. And sometimes I have to I find myself being resistant to a suggestion. I have to tell myself, hey, dude, listen, you don't know everything. Listen.
This show that I do is an extension of where I started. Came out of the radio business,
Mm-hmm.
but as an on-air person is how I first started before I got into senior management. So for me, taking a walk on, came out of that sort of pursuit of love of something and passion for something and wanting to sort of go back to my initial roots and where my heart really is.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand it, at least from my perspective. But in closing here, taking your perspective on how you followed your heart, and if someone's listening and they're in this position of a job, a career course, how would you get them in their own way to jump off the curb and do what they love?
I would say one thing that kind of held me back a little bit was thinking, I wish I would have done this when I was younger. Am I an idiot? Am I stupid? What am I thinking trying to do this now? I think that it's never too late if there's something you really want to do, at the end of your life, you can look back and say, I tried this. I really wanted to do it. I went for it. It didn't work out, but I gave it my best shot, or maybe it did work out and wow. Or you can say, I never tried. I wish I would have. I just don't think, I think I wish I would have is like the worst of those possibilities. And so you got to go for it, otherwise you're going to be looking back saying, what if? I wish I would have. I wonder if I could have. And just the experience, even if I had failed at this, or it hadn't worked out, or it didn't work with Joe or whatever, I still would have enjoyed the learning experience and the ride of trying it. And what's the downside?
Well, you know way more about movies than I know, but this is the stuff that certainly movies are made of. Who's going to play you in the movie?
I don't know.
What dashing superhero? It's an
Robert
amazing.
Downey Jr. I don't know.
Who's that?
Robert Downey Jr.
There you go. Quite a life there, right? It's an
Yeah.
amazing story. The
Well,
music is
thank you.
fantastic. I can't wait to hear the new music, and I really appreciate how you took us behind the scenes there to the creation and your amazing story. And Steve Bardwil, I'm so glad that you're on Taking a Walk.
Well, thank you very much. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And, Happy holidays.
And come back again anytime.